Welcome to episode 2 of ReflectInQuiry. Someone recently asked me a very interesting question. Why do people say that marriage is so hard? I had to take some time to really think this one through because there are so many possible answers, and honestly, the answer you get depends on who you ask, what they've lived, and what season of life they're currently in. So, I'm not going to try to answer this fully. I'm only going to offer a single reflection that I've been sitting with. And with that, I think it's interesting that you can meet a couple who dated for many years, sometimes a decade or more, before getting married. And then the marriage itself doesn't last very long. On the other hand, you can meet a couple who knew each other for a very short time, got married fairly quickly, and their relationship lasts for many years. You can also see this play out in different ways. People who married very young, maybe they were high school sweethearts, and then they stayed together for a very long time. Others who waited many years before marriage, only for it to be short lived. And of course, the opposite of all of these examples can also be true. And as I've been reflecting on this, I think one thing that stands out to me is that when you make a decision to marry someone, it's kind of a leap of faith. You're making this covenant relationship decision, a commitment that is emotional, relational, spiritual, and also legal. You're agreeing in law and in words to be bound to this person through all kinds of unknowns, through thick and thin, through changes in health, finances, circumstances, and even in character, which I think is an important piece that is sometimes overlooked in these vows. The focus tends to be on changing circumstances, external events, hardships, and conditions of life. But they don't always name another reality that also change, or sometimes doesn't change in the way that we expect. And that's in people themselves. Characters change, personalities evolve, behaviors shift, coping styles emerge, and sometimes growth looks different than what we might imagine. And when circumstances or even your partner or yourself change drastically from who you were, who they were before the ideas, the commitment can suddenly feel heavier or different. Not that the vow itself was wrong, but the conditions where it's now being lived out are no longer the same. And when the person sitting across from you is no longer who you thought you knew, when you yourself are no longer who you were before the vows, or maybe the change hasn't happened in a way that was expected, that vow can feel heavier and harder to keep from both ends. Again, not necessarily because the commitment disappears, but because what's being asked of it has changed. And the reality is, when you make that commitment, you don't yet know who you will be in all the changing context to come. You don't yet know who they will be with all the changing context to come. You don't know yourself fully or your spouse fully through unknown life transitions that are on their way. You don't know what changes when the marriage is tested by conflict or disappointment or new responsibilities. You don't know who they are if they lose a job, face financial illness, or encounter challenges that neither of you could have predicted. And what I'm really saying is that when you make that commitment, you're committing based on what you know in that moment. You're committing without fully knowing who either of you will become, what life will bring, or how those circumstances and experiences will shape and transform the relationship. You make the vow, and then the marriage begins. And this is often where it gets hard. To continually return to your shared intention to keep loving one another, to keep learning, to keep trying, and to strengthen the relationship as life unfolds. In this new season, in the context of marriage, you continually rediscovering each other. and you yourself are changing and becoming. We aren't exactly the same people that we were last year, maybe not even from a few months ago. We're shaped by experiences, losses, growth, and responsibility. The person that you marry is doing the same. So maybe part of what makes marriage hard is also the part that makes it beautiful. At the same time, maybe what makes it beautiful is also what makes it hard. That you're choosing to step into the unknown with someone who is changing and transforming along with you. Maybe the difficulty comes when we try to hold on to what was known before to create that same reality or that same sense of familiarity while also trying to allow space for what is new, what's different, and what's still unfolding. I'll leave that thought there, not as the answer or the only answer to the question, but just a single reflection. What does it mean to commit to someone who is becoming just as you are? And how do we learn to meet one another again and again across seasons rather than expecting what once was to stay exactly the same? I'm interested to hear what kind of questions you're also reflecting on, and you're welcome to share anonymously or through comments at reflectinquiry.com. Some of these questions may also shape future conversations. And with that, thank you for listening today. As always, I'm glad you're here.